mute myself and scroll down so I only see the chat. Otherwise,
Oh, that's smart. Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Also, it's funny because my boss has the COVID.
The COVID, the YouTube on the line.
He's like, hey, you don't want to get the COVID. I'm like,
No.
He's also like in his 70s, so it's very sweet. Oh. Cool, we're live.
We're live?
Yeah, we're live.
All right, let's see. Let me find you.
Let me post about this.
I'm gonna pull up YouTube.
Before this, I'm like, you're gonna give me cramps right now. So I like legit have I was like, this is a self-care collab. I have a heating pad on my lap. I'm by the fire. I was like, everyone should understand this.
There you go. I remember, I don't really, because I have an IUD that I should probably get replaced actually. But I used to get cramps so badly. And I remember one time like looking up homeopathic remedies, and one of them was like, put a warm, small animal on your body. So I was like, okay, Ollie, now's your time to shine.
That's literally, I also have an IUD, which is, I love.
They're the best.
I used to get really bad cramps and really heavy periods, and now I don't. It's way lighter, but I still get cramps. So it's weird because I'll like have cramps, but like not a real period. And I'm like, this is so strange.
I'm like, okay, Ollie, now's your time to shine. There we go. Whoa, sorry.
But I do the same thing with Rocco. He's like perfect. I mean, he's like Ollie size, maybe a little smaller. So I just like, come here. And he curls up like a bagel, and it's perfect.
Chef's kiss.
And at some point we found out that Chihuahuas were bred to, okay, this is like crazy. So Chihuahuas have a higher body temp than most dogs because they were bred to warm up the foot of the bed for royalty. So like, obviously they didn't have heaters. So they were like, just put Chihuahuas on the foot of their bed.
Oh my God, imagine a bed full of Chihuahuas.
And it's really funny. Me and Sophia like love it, and Michael's like, "That's so weird. I can't believe you guys know this stuff."
Chickens have a really high body temperature. They used to keep chickens in outhouses to keep them like heated.
Oh, interesting.
Fun fact: if you ever have to resort to an outhouse, get a chicken for the winter months.
I feel like it makes sense, and the reason why I feel like it makes sense is probably going to make me sound much more stupid than I am. But like, they have to incubate their eggs.
Yeah, I mean, all birds do though. Not all birds are
higher than other birds, though. Even like they're just high.
I believe so. Yeah, I could be wrong. It's a very real possibility.
Well, the next time I need to go into an outhouse and I see a chicken lying around, I know.
You'll know.
Exactly.
There you go.
Although a few people are here. Say hi if you're here. Let us know who you are, where you're calling in from. Do you have any pets who you use to keep you warm? Ollie. So we don't have any stretch tonight, but we have Ollie, which I will accept.
Do you know what my mom said about him yesterday? She looks, okay, so keep in mind, I listen to spooky podcasts and I got my mom into creepy podcasts. So she just learned about black-eyed children. She was looking at him yesterday from the kitchen. She's like, Ollie looks like one of those black-eyed children. Where his eyes should be, there's just blackness. And I was like, Mom, please don't. And like, okay, wait. Did I ever tell you my creepy, scary dream with him?
With Ollie? No.
Oh, it might scare you because you get scared easily.
I'm already watching the night stalker, and I told Michael, I was like, well, I guess we're not sleeping tonight. I guess that's just what's going to happen. So like, go ahead, tell me.
All right. Okay. So it was like the opposite of sleep paralysis. I couldn't move, but it was like I was seeing stuff. So I woke up in the middle of the night, which I do a lot because like Ollie will wake up and he's cold, or like I was sleep talking, whatever. And he like slowly and clumsily like climbs up my body with his little paws. So I'm like lying there and I feel him crawling up me with those little paws. And I look down and and like I'm fully like moving. It's this long black haired woman who is naked and wet, and it's like her elbows climbing up me, her skinny bony elbows. And I was just like, oh my God. And so I turned my head and I was like I know that's Ollie. And for some reason, like during this weird little sleep paralysis dream, whatever you want to call it, I knew that it was like something else, but like taking over him. So I was like, oh my God, oh my God. All I have to do is just like reach out and touch him and like feel that he's fluffy, and like it'll be fine, it'll be gone, it'll be gone. So I'm just like this, I'm like, yay! And I grab him and I feel the fluff and I look and it's just him and he's like ooh, ooh, at me, and I was like, but it was so scary.
Okay, that sounds terrifying, and also that happens to me. And I'm like, is that a thing? Like, I've never had night terrors, but I like wake up and see things. And I'm like, is this just like my imagination? Like, I'm still in a dream state and I'm not like fully awake yet. But like, that terrifies me because then I'm scared and I can't go back to sleep. And I think there's like when I watched, did you watch, what's it called, Michael? Hill House, The Haunting of Hill House. Did you watch that?
Yes. I watched that like 3 times in a row.
Bent Neck Lady? I didn't sleep for weeks, Laura, because the first night I watched Bent Neck Lady and I was like, this is too scary. I'm going to stop watching. And then I seeing Bent Neck Lady in my room. And then like by the time I eventually was like, I just need to finish this season, I was like, oh, that made it so much less scary because now I know like who she is. Mm-hmm. For weeks, I was like up in the middle of the night, turning all the lights on, and I was living by myself. So I was like, this is just terrifying. I swear I would like see moving, not like shadows, like whatever. It was very scary.
I get that. That's like after I saw The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and this is like embarrassing, but I don't even care. It's like I'm like a masochist. Like it's might I say it's so weird, masochist. I'm like a masochist. Because I get really scared. I just like enjoy the moment, but like I don't enjoy it afterwards when I'm like all scared by myself. But I remember I watched The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and I think I was like 16 or like 14, I don't know. I woke up every single morning at 3 a.m. for like a good 6 months after that, every single morning. And I was convinced I was going to be possessed. And I had as a 14 to 16-year-old human being, had to go into my parents' room and just like sleep in their bed because I was like, I'm going to die. I know it. And my parents were probably like what's wrong with her? But
that's exactly how I get. Like I enjoy it. I just get so scared. And I also wake up at like when Michael first moved in, the first like probably through October, because we were watching scary movies. Every single night I was waking up at like 3:33 or like 3:30, and he was like, are you like possessed? And I was like, I don't know.
Probably.
So there are 4 people here. Actually, 2 of them are probably us, or 1 of them is you. And they're probably like, what am I watching? Is this like a podcast that talks about scary shows? And if you're here, yes, it is. That's what we talk about. Scary shows and animals that scare us.
That's pretty much it. That's self-care.
Yeah, that is
radical self-care.
So this is not about scary shows, although I'm sure we'll talk about scary things. If you're here, welcome to the Self-Care Collaborative week 13. Lucky 13. Laura, your unlucky number, scary 13. That's like meant to be.
It really is, because I wasn't supposed to be this week.
Right?
It's fate. And
I am the human behind the Little Wolf Knits and the Self-Care Collaborative. If this is your first time checking us out, probably because Laura brought you here, with the promise of Stretch, who is not here. Maybe he's here in spirit. We just can't see him.
He's behind me. He's out the window. He's just shy.
Welcome. There are definitely a bunch more videos before this that are super awesome that are on my YouTube. If you haven't checked them all out already, check them out. If you're coming back, welcome back. This is a very fun. I'm super excited for tonight, despite the cramps that you might have caught at the beginning of this episode. I'm super excited to be here with a friend of mine and chatting about self-care and what that has looked like in Laura's life. And I'm super excited to hear her challenge for later that I don't know about. I thought you were going to tell me. I thought you were going to be like, this is what I'm going to do and break my streak of not knowing before anyone else. But you didn't. And what else to say? Admin stuff. It is the last week of January. What that means is that this is the last week, or the last video, I should say, that's going to go live before I pull for the end of January prize, which is going to be, I decided while I was speaking during my last podcast, it's going to be a little candle from my shop in a scent of your choice, a little 8-ounce candle in a cute little metal tin. And maybe something else, I don't know, we'll see. And it doesn't just have to include challenges from the month of January. Any post that you've posted on Instagram and use the hashtag self-care collaborative 2020 will be entered to win. Tag me if you haven't already, just because I like seeing them, but just to make sure that it gets entered. And yeah, I'll probably pull that beginning of next week, if I'm being honest. So definitely get in posts this weekend if you haven't already. Otherwise, I'm here with my friend Laura. Most people know you. She's the woman, the myth, the legend.
Hi.
I don't have any other words to say. Go ahead, tell the people who you are in case they're maybe not on Instagram and don't know you, and where they can find you.
Hi, I am Laura Murphy of Murphy Made Crochet on Instagram. I do crochet and I post pictures of it, and that's pretty much all I do with my time. Except for maybe I go hunting for alligators, peaceful hunting just to see them, and I cuddle my dog a lot. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
And what are you wearing right now? I don't think that's crochet.
Okay. This is knit, and I'm super proud of it. It's the Midori pullover by You Knit Toronto. And I made it with Heather Prime Alpaca from Galler Yarns. Super recommend because it's super soft. It's in cornflower blue.
So how many more?
Little star stitches.
It's so pretty. How many more sweaters do you need to knit before you call yourself a knitter and not just a crocheter?
Right now I would say I'm a crocheter who can knit. Probably one more sweater and I'll say I'm a crocheter who knits, and then maybe 2 more sweaters and I am a crocheter / knitter.
I feel that. I think I'm gonna use that because I can crochet. I have occasionally crocheted. But maybe a few more things and then I will crochet, and then I don't know.
There you go. There you go.
So tell us a little bit about your journey into crochet and now knitting and what that has looked like, because you're fairly new on the scene.
I am. I didn't start crocheting until fall of 2018, I think. I didn't have an Instagram account until winter or fall of 2019. And so I haven't gone to any of the festivals where everyone else has, and everyone's met each other, because almost immediately after I started my Instagram, COVID kind of hit the scene and things happened.
Did you do this to us, Laura?
What?
Did you do this to us? Was your starting your
Yeah, honestly, it's what it is my social anxiety is that bad. I never wanted to actually have to meet anyone in real life. So I just kind of like, let's infect a ton of people so it doesn't have to happen.
Wow, you put that out into the universe and now here we are.
You're welcome. No, but I actually used to knit when I was little. My grandmother taught me, and I always loved it. I never did anything besides knit stitch, and I didn't really understand what I was doing. I never tried to do anything more than just a rectangle. They were supposed to be scarves. I never finished one. Um, but every now and then I would like pick it up again and be like, oh, look at me. I'm knitting. And then I'd forget about it. And so I've talked about this a bit on my Instagram and like on Casey's blog, but I got into crochet after I got sober. And it's, getting sober for me was like the biggest, most radical act of self care thus far in my life, at least, who knows. But after I got sober, and it was before I was really involved in like the 12-step program I'm in right now, and my mental health was just like in the shitter, like my panic disorder was just like totally unmanaged. I literally would spend every single day on the couch in my parents' living room, just like in fetal position on my phone playing solitaire, waiting for like each panic attack to pass and like crying. And it was horrible and it was really brutal. And my mom knows I love alpacas. So one day to cheer me up, she was like, let's go to an alpaca farm. And so we went and it was really fun. I have a picture of an alpaca eating a carrot out of my mouth. Kind of looks like I'm slipping him the tongue. Am I? I don't know, but it's fine. But anyway, so like we walked around the store. I got this cute little alpaca pen, and I also got some hand dyed and hand spun yarn from them. And when we went home, my mom and I decided like we're gonna crochet a scarf. So we went on YouTube. We got really mad at the YouTube lady, so we went to a different YouTube. Now I love the YouTube lady. I
Who
think
was
it
it?
was Woolpedia, I think. I want to say her name was Olga or Helga. Um, but like at one point she was like, if you don't know what a half double crochet is, then go to a more beginner friendly YouTube. And I was like, Olga, are you serious right now? I got so mad. My mom
Yeah.
got mad. I know, but eventually something clicked and I just couldn't put it down. I was making hats. I got into making Ollie sweaters and like I was still really struggling with my panic attacks and like feeling horrible about myself because I went from working in finance 10 hours a day when the market's open to just lying on the couch all day, like crying and fighting off panic attacks. And suddenly, in between panic attacks, I'm able to like make something with my hands and, at the end of the day, I have a pretty sweater for Ollie or something. So it somehow like made it less miserable, like that my day sucks. And like I wasn't really, living as much because something beautiful still could come of it. And then, I slowly kind of found my footing in my sobriety and I got my mental health under much better management, went back to my doctor, blah, blah, blah. And I just stayed crocheting and it's been super, super helpful. Like in the beginning, when I would go to like meetings and stuff, I would really, really struggle not to have to leave the meeting every 5 minutes or so for, to run to the bathroom and have like a panic attack and then like leave and wait for my friend who I went with to come out and meet me. But if I brought yarn, I had not necessarily like a cure, but more like a distraction. So I could kind of just like focus on something besides how I couldn't breathe or like how the world was closing in or how my vision's wrong. So it really, really helped in that regard. And I learned how to make garments. I started testing and yeah, I'm super, super happy playing with yarn all the time now.
First of all, I'm like, how spoiled are you that your first time like coming back into this and crocheting, you have like hand spun, hand dyed alpaca yarn. No wonder you were obsessed with it. Like, yeah, uh-huh. Um, and it's really cool. I think I've said it before, probably in some of these videos, that a lot of the research about knitting, like the neuro research, talks about how the repetitive, like bilateral motion of our hands literally makes our brain, it changes the way our brain state is so that it doesn't make us happier. Like it's not a happy pill, but what it does is it helps our brain tolerate distress. So like it won't make you less sad necessarily, but it makes us feel more capable of dealing with whatever we're dealing with. And I have to imagine that crochet has a similar, even though it's one hook, I imagine the
I'm using this hand a lot with the yarn.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I imagine it has a similar impact
that's
there.
really cool. I like that. I like because I know it also it has kind of like a grounding effect on me because like, you know, I'm touching something and then I'm methodically moving my hand and like the like you said, like repetitive motion. So it definitely has like a little bit of a grounding quality for me too.
Yeah, it's like self soothing. Like
Mhm.
I'm not like a rocker, but I imagine it's the same as like someone like rubbing your back or like the rocking that like people do. It's like, yeah, you get into that kind of rhythmic place that feels like soothing.
No, for sure.
Um, and so I guess then that makes me curious, and you've already kind of talked about it a little bit and how getting sober was such a big act of self-care for you. And so I'm kind of curious to hear what your journey through your life, maybe, or as far back as you want to go, with self-care has looked like. It sounds like in the past few years, there's been some overlap with crochet and creating and making, but I'm kind of curious what it looked like before that and how that evolved.
Before that, my self-care was just numbing myself. So it wasn't really care at all. It was more like shutting everything out because each moment felt like too long to actually exist in. Um,
Mhm.
but that's what I would do. Like if I was happy, I would drink. If I was sad, I would drink. If I was feeling empty, which was like towards the end, that's all I felt was just like emptiness. Um, I would drink to fill that emptiness because, or just not to feel that emptiness and just like be like, okay, let's black out now so that I don't have to exist in it,
Mhm.
which, you know, not great. I don't recommend. If anyone is struggling with that, please feel free to reach out to me because I will give you a hotline number and I will be a friend. But yeah, so like for me, self-care did not exist at all. You know, I would occasionally do yoga or like paint my nails or like something to like self-care, but ultimately I was just kind of like living this cycle of making everything so much worse for myself, then waking up and feeling terrible about it. So then drinking more to make myself not feel it, then waking up from that and just kind of perpetuating this thing and not understanding why I wasn't feeling better. Like
Mhm.
I was in group therapy and I was going drunk and I was like confused why it wasn't working.
Mm.
I think I have a hint why it might not have been working. Although, because I am a dramatic bitch, I am I allowed to curse on here?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. Because I'm a dramatic bitch. I do remember one time I was like drunk and she asked me if I drank, and I somehow managed to turn the entire group against her. And like I got a couple people to walk out with me, and my therapist ended up calling me and apologizing. And so like everyone went back except for one girl stayed mad. But that's how I was. I was like this weird manipulative monster that lived in this like delusion of permanently being a victim, you know? Like
Mhm.
I genuinely like thought that she was victimizing me by asking if I had had anything to drink. And so like whereas today, you know, so like I mentioned, I'm in a 12-step program and So like, I will say my self-care like is like a combination of, mental health and just like, because I do have a panic disorder. So like I have to stay on top of that. I have an alcohol addiction. I really have to stay on top of that. So like I have to be a little intense when it comes to my self-care. And one of the biggest things for me is kind of accountability for my own behavior. Um, because I found, and a lot of my friends who are also in recovery can attest that they also found that constantly living in a state of like the world is against you, like, is misguided. And often it's not the world, it's the person. So, that was a big part of kind of coming around, was coming to terms with like all the ways I was not only like harming my own, myself, but like everyone around me, and kind of owning up to it and making amends and reflecting daily on like my behavior that day, and could I have done something better? Should I have handled this differently? Was I acting out of fear? Was I acting out of this, that? And then like talking to a sponsor and being like, okay, so this is where I could have done better. And it's exhausting sometimes, but what else am I going to do?
Yeah. It's so interesting too, though. I mean, that piece of like, I guess there's two thoughts that come up and they feel like parallel, maybe, but not the same. That a lot of times when you think about someone who's struggling with substances, like, yes, obviously it's impacting them and their personhood, but like if they're just in a perpetual state of being fucked up, they probably don't realize how much it's impacting them and how much it's also impacting their community, with which like then further impacts them because people are angry with
Yeah.
you, sort of taking care of you, or like that sort of stuff. So it's not only impacting you directly, but then there's like that indirect, and I'm losing supports that I have because I'm either intentionally or unintentionally driving a wedge there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good point. And I didn't realize this, like, it wasn't like I got sober and suddenly was like, oh, I get everything now. I like realized, not recently, but probably a year into my sobriety, that like my interpretations of how a few of my relationships, most of my relationships ended, I had this idea that like, I show up for you in all these ways because I have this one issue that you just can't be a friend for me. Like, don't you see, like, I need a friend and I've been there for you. Like, what's wrong with you that you can't show up for me the way I show up for you? But like the reality is I was choosing alcohol every single time. And it's, there are only so many times you can put someone in a situation where they're worried for your safety, or, you know, you're mean to them because you're drunk and your brain isn't functioning.
Mm-hmm.
Before they, start to pull away, which they should, because that's not fair to them.
Mm-hmm.
But 100%. And like, I mean, addiction is a family disease, everyone around the person suffers in some way.
Mm-hmm. And I love too what you say though, like it wasn't like, oh, I got sober and I like got it. And I know, so my dad is in recovery for I think like 33, 34 years sober. And like growing up was super transparent with us and like would go to meetings and talk to us, and we would go to some Al-Anon meetings. And I remember having conversations with him that like, and then getting into psychology and being like, well, having this perspective that talking about like, you can be clean without being sober. And like, just because you stop using a substance or using all substances doesn't mean you're not doing the same thing. So like that piece that you said, like, I was just trying not to feel anything. Like, substances make that easier, but you don't need substances to do that. I think there are a lot of ways people do that, whether it's another vice, whether it's technology, whether it's social media, whether it's just closing themselves off to any sort of internal process. And so it's cool to, I guess, hear you talk about the process that it's like, yes, it was stopping the substances I was using, but it also sounds like it was more than just that. It was like, also, how do I allow myself to come into contact with the shit that like doesn't feel good so I can work through it and like figure it out instead of just, run away from it.
That's kind of like, the whole point of being involved in like some 12-step program is ultimately how do you face life in a way that is healthy and in a way where you can face it and show up, as opposed to like running away and coping with very unhealthy methods. And like that took me a while, and I'm still learning, like, and I'm still messing up, like, because I'm human, and I'm never gonna get it perfectly, but like I gotta say, like, the sitting with feelings, it took a while. And like in the beginning too, when you first, get sober, there's like this 6-month window where what's it called? It's like acute withdrawal or some post acute, I forget what it is. But it's basically like your emotions, instead of like, being like a little bit of a lasagna, you're like, and it was just, you feel everything where, as before you were feeling nothing. So you go to all of a sudden having this extreme. So it's almost like once you get sober, the thing you need most is to like numb it out, because you're like, this is way too extreme for me. But it slowly like kind of levels out as long as you kind of keep your head. And I mean, a big thing for me too, like I have to say, like, because I was like housebound by my panic disorder and literally spending every single day just like in a constant state of panic. And like for anyone who's had panic attacks, like it's like torturous when it's just like continuous. It's really brutal. And so to like constantly be in that state of like just like hyper alert, just like dread, crying, like, and all the physical symptoms of it. When I came out the other end of that and like, changed medications, started going to the doctor more, and realized like, oh, I have to take care of the alcohol thing, but also still the mental health thing. I was just so grateful to be able to walk outside, but also to feel something besides just panic, so that it turned into like this weird thing for me where not necessarily like that it happened for a reason, but like I can see that because I went through that, it kind of helps me bridge the gap between like feeling those crazy emotions and then like being grateful to just like feel something and be able to like walk outside, because it's, when you don't do it for a certain amount of time and you're stuck in that, it's like, what else is there?
Yeah, because then not only are your emotions stronger and like heightened, but you also don't have practice with dealing with them. Like when you think about other people developmentally who aren't like turning to substances to numb out, you grow your endurance to deal with things that hurt. And if you're like, that's a practice. And if you're not practicing that and then you're sober and your emotions are all over the place, it's even harder to deal with. And so I guess it makes me think, Laura, I don't know, it's also funny. I'm having lots of conversations this week. So the boss I was talking about, who says the COVID, I like really love it. He's my direct supervisor and he's retiring at the end of this month. So like we're saying goodbyes and whatever. And we were talking in our last supervision meeting the other day, and like I'm like sobbing, like crying, like so sad. And we're talking just like philosophical, I guess. He just having conversations about life. And he was saying that like it seems that everybody hopes to be in like a perpetual state of happiness, But then we were like, that would be such a boring life. Like, because happiness feels like a shallow emotion. Like happiness is nice, but happiness is not like deep joy or pride or excitement. And like to get an emotion that deep, you can't only get the good emotions that are that deep. You also have to deal with like the flip side of like, if you want to feel deep joy, you probably also have to feel deep sorrow when you're separated from those people and those things that bring you that. And so hearing that gratitude, I think, is a good word of like just to feel anything, like to be able to feel that and connect with anything that wasn't like the intense panic that I was feeling, like that comes through so much in how you talk.
I mean, it's true. And like when I was in rehab and like the first couple of months after rehab before I kind of like really the panic attack situation got out of control, um, I had so much anger at the fact that I couldn't drink. Like it's weird. You kind of almost go through the 5 stages of grief because like towards
Mhm.
the end, your addiction's kind of all you have left. You know, you drive away everything just to protect this one thing that's a constant in your life. And I was so mad. I was just like furious. But like that's one thing that was just like gone after, you know, my horrible little panic bubble. But like yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be like kind of grateful because it's just, I feel like when you go from feeling just so shitty all the time to like even feeling okay, you're just like, oh my God, like this is such a relief. And then when you laugh, you're like, oh, this is amazing. Yes, this is great. But like even like being sad, like it's, you know, it's not a pleasant emotion by any means, but it's one that kind of reminds you like that you're human. And it's,
Yeah.
for me, it's a low energy emotion, which is
Mhm.
like at the opposite end than panic, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. I don't know why I continued on.
It makes me curious too, Laura, because obviously we're talking about your sobriety as being a really big part of your self-care and how making fits into that. What else does self-care look like for you now on a day-to-day, week to week, maybe?
Well, so a big thing of my self-care, I mean, it's not necessarily day to day, but it is day to day because it is my day to day. So I'm not working in finance anymore, you know, I'm taking some time off to, you know, I'm making little money through crochet and working for a dyer behind the scenes. So essentially, I'm just like working a little bit part time to kind of give myself the time to like just be and like to build back up as
Mhm.
opposed to when I was working in finance and like, you know, I had the panic disorder diagnosis then too, but I was just like going in every day and like taking Xanax when needed, then going home and drinking. And, you know, obviously it progressed, but, you know, I was never addressing any issue. I was never taking care of it. I was putting a band-aid over it and being like, well, I have to do this anyways. And so now I'm kind of taking the time to allow myself, even though it's, you know, not, if you had asked me like 5 years ago, like, do you want to live at home with your parents and just crochet all day? I would have been like, hell no, are you kidding me? Like, that sounds sad. And no, no, thank you. But, you know, it's giving me the chance to rebuild. And I'm like very fortunate to, you know, have a situation where I'm allowed to stay with my parents. And, you know, obviously right now things are weird with COVID, and I'm lucky that I can stay with my mom in Florida and help her out and like set up the house and do her shopping because she can't really go into any of the stores. So I'm lucky to be able to, you know, kind of show up for her, but just taking the time and like not forcing myself to slap a band-aid on and continue carrying on as if just so my life can like look like how I imagine it should look. because, I did that and it did not work. My life from the outside looked great. I had an apartment, I was living in the city, I was living in Hoboken after that, had my dog, and I had like a great job, and I had a boyfriend, and like I had all the things that I was like, okay, linear, this is my life. And, once you got inside the picture, it was like an absolute mess. So I'm that's like a big thing for me, is taking this time and giving myself the grace not to compare myself to where I think I should be in my journey, where anyone else is, because everyone's experiences are different. And, you know, sometimes I have to remind myself that a few times in a row, but that definitely is a big part of it, giving myself that space to kind of not just recover from being sober, but like to fully just try to build from a healthy place and figure out not necessarily what's going to make me happy, but what's going to be healthiest for me, because the stakes are kind of a little higher when you have an addiction and you've got some mental health issues on top of that. Not that it's not important for everyone to make sure, they're healthy and in a healthy place, but repercussions could be more immediate for someone in my position. So it's really just like a lot of focusing and making sure I'm in an okay headspace. And if I'm not, giving myself the permission to back away from something that's negatively, like, not like making me sad, not like, anything like that, but like something that's causing an unbalance in any way, or anything that would kind of like jeopardize how I'm doing, anything that's spiking my anxiety, what have you. Take a step back, call a couple people in recovery, get some advice. And I mean, it really is like an everyday thing for me, and it's both because like, in my program, because like I'm in AA, you really do have to stay involved for the most part, like if you're involved. But because I have the double fold with the mental health on top of it, I kind of like, I feel like, am I talking in circles? Am I making sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, there's like a lot of leaning on network, like having things reinforced for me that I need to hear, and a lot of like, if I thought, like I said before, like taking daily inventory of my emotions and my feelings and what I'm grateful for. Um, I mean,
Mhm.
did that answer your question?
Yeah, I really like too, Laura, you make this point that feels really sophisticated and maybe doesn't feel that way to you, but this idea that like the target is not to feel good. Because I've done that before and like that doesn't get me living a meaningful life. The target is to do things that are going to get me a meaningful life. Sometimes it'll feel good, sometimes it won't. But like that's okay because that's part of being human. That's part of having a meaningful life, like not just to feel good all the time. And so it sounds like part of that process for you too was recognizing like a shift or a change in like where your compass was pointing. Like I can't be going toward that because that's not working for me.
Mhm.
But I can maybe shift a little bit and do something that's gonna work for me in the long term, even though it's not maybe how I lived most of my life or what I thought it would look like. Um, there's a therapist who says he's like like old white dude who's like pretty sarcastic and like pretty blunt and like to the point, but he would tell people like you're shitting all over yourself, like you're shitting all over yourself. Um, and so that popped into my head when you're talking. And so I guess I mean hearing all of that and hearing what your day to day looks like.
Do you
Holly.
hear my dog snoring?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, he is.
Come
Wake up.
up.
He's out.
Oh my gosh. Michael and Sophia both follow this dog on Instagram and TikTok, I think. His name is like Pudgy something. Pudgy. Do you know who I'm talking about? I'll have to send it to you. If you're watching and you know who I'm talking about, it's like this little like black and white, black and gray chihuahua. And he's like really sassy. And he was like, wow, wow. But he snores really loudly. And it's so cute. Like rock snore, but it's so cute.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna need you to send that to me.
Thank you. But so I guess it makes me curious, like that doesn't sound easy to stay on track with, like, especially when you're used to maybe just wanting to feel good or not feel bad or not feel period.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine there's some like challenges that you face, overcome.
Yeah, it gets kind of like, I'll go through like periods where it's like, I won't call anyone for like a week kind of thing because, well, it's like anything. It's not that you get bored of it, but it's just like, it starts becoming a little bit of a chore. You're like, ugh, but, it's one of those things where you got to be like, all right, and also like realistically for me, I think I've mentioned this to you before, actually, like I will have dreams in which I drank and something terrible happened. Shoot, what was my last one? Oh yeah, I killed someone. In a dream that I remember, I drank and I accidentally, well, not accidentally, but like killed in a blackout a person. And so like the next day I woke up, I was like, okay, I got to get back into like calling people again and like going to meetings and stuff like that. So like I do have like kind of like this weird little like alarm deep down in there that like when I'm sleeping, if it's like, girl, you haven't been doing what you got to do, let's slap you in the face a bit. And so I got to listen when that happens. But I mean, it's one of those things. It's like homework, I watched Casey's self-care, so she liked homework. I don't. A lot of people don't like homework. It's just so it becomes something like that where it's like, I got to do this thing, and it's for a good reason, but like, I want to watch TV. I don't really want to call and listen to someone tell me how I could have handled the situation better. But, ultimately, you got to keep doing it.
So beside dream state, Laura.
Wake up. He woke me up. Oh, look at this sleepy face.
He's so mushy.
He hates me right now.
How old is he?
He's 6.
Like, I'll leave me alone.
Well, that's what you get for waking me up at 3 a.m. He's nesting.
Oh, that's my favorite thing. We watch Rocco do that literally for like hours. That's what Rocco does with my knitting. If I put my knitting down for a second, he like is a magnet and just
no!
Knitting is not bad, but when he does this, I'm like. But so beside dream state Laura, who sounds very scary.
She don't move around.
What else is it that you think like keeps you on track, that keeps you taking care of yourself, that keeps you staying sober, even though it's so much work or it takes so much
honestly, it's one of those things that maybe it might be hard for me to totally put into words, but it's like when you've been like at the bottom of the bottom, and like your entire life has been burned to the ground, and like I literally like I had to learn how to do everything sober. Like my first haircut sober was like a big deal, and like I celebrated because I hadn't had a sober haircut since I was 18. You know what I mean? And it's hard to put into words just the amount of gratitude that a person has once they're able to like kind of move on from that. Because the thing is, like, when I was living the way I was living, it is so exhausting. It is so exhausting constantly counting down to your next drink and like planning when you can sneak away from the desk and how you can do it so you don't get caught. Like, it is just so exhausting having to lie constantly so nobody knows, having to defend everything and having to protect this thing that is causing you so much harm. So, compared to that, like, it's not that much work. And when I look at the stakes, it's like not even being dramatic, like it is life and death. Like I have woken up in the hospital many, many times with over 0.40 and Xanax in my system, you know? Like I'm super lucky to be alive, and I just feel like once you kind of move past that like weird insanity where just it's hard to it's really hard to describe, but like once you get away from that and you can look back at how far you've come, it is just like I'm never ever going to do anything that will aid in any way to me getting back to that place, because no.
Hmm. It sounds like being sober, like, yes, even though maybe it made a little bit more space for panic or sadness or whatever else, it sounds like it also made a lot more space in your life for gratitude and for clarity and for to be able to look back and see clearly like what was happening. And that sounds like space for all those other things outweighs the space for the other side of the coin. I too that I guess that like doesn't feel so great all the time.
It's true though, because I mean, you know, when I was living in my alcoholism, my world got so small. Like it became just me and like being drunk, and that's it. Like, and you know, you push away all your relationships, but like even aside from like external things, your world just shrinks so much. And once you're able to get past that and get to a point where you can kind of like open up your eyes a little bit, everything starts to expand and your life just kind of grows in like this exponential way. And it's kind of cool. Like it's weird though, like looking back, because like there's this one story to kind of like break it down, like it's just how insane like anyone dealing with addiction is, where it's like, okay, so if you imagine a jaywalker walks across the street, he gets in trouble. And so people are like, hey, don't do that. But he keeps doing it. And it's like, you're jaywalking. Like, why are you doing this? And he's like, I gotta do it. He gets hit by a car. Doesn't care. He keeps jaywalking because he wants to jaywalk. It's like, that's so dumb. Why would you do that? It's jaywalking. Like, who that, like, this thing is hurting you. Stop. But like, that's what it was, you know? So I don't know why I shared that. I just thought it was funny for some reason. But um, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
So you know what the next question is? It's my favorite question because I'm dying to know what your homework, we won't call it homework because you don't like homework, unless you're looking to also punish people
Homework.
into doing
Y'all have to
homework.
do your homework.
I'm dying to hear what you want the people to try out this week or whenever they end up watching this.
Um, okay, so I had a couple ideas. But one of them, and I don't know how I would go about doing this realistically, but because it's like kind of like a big thing for me, um, to allow yourself to sit back and feel when something bad happens. If you're feeling sad, to allow you to sit back and feel that so that you can process it, but then not wallow in it. and do I don't know. See, I don't know. It's hard. Or maybe I'll give them a little bit of AA homework.
Okay.
One day, just take a daily inventory for one day. Or you can do an overall for the week where you just kind of look at how your week went, whether you're happy with it, whether you could have handled a situation better, if you were acting out of fear, if you were acting out of anger, whatever, and ways you could have acted differently. But then also finish it with a gratitude list for the week. But that might be too much.
I think so. But I think, I don't know. I see them as being maybe more related. And maybe that's because none of these feel incredibly new to me, but I see all of those things as being more related. That's like, just take it to the extent that you want to take it that week. That like, maybe you're just going to try for one moment in one situation, just sitting and noticing, like you're saying, what is my internal experience like? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I feeling about how I'm feeling? Like, just sitting with that. I know sometimes I tell people, like, set a timer, because I think that's the scariest thing when we let ourselves feel something that's like painful. Like, what if I don't stop feeling that? What if I just keep crying forever? And like, you won't keep crying forever, I promise. Like, your body won't do that to you. Eventually you'll stop, you'll get hungry and you'll like need to eat.
Dehydrated.
Yeah, like you won't feel that way forever. But I like sometimes, like, people have their place where they like to feel, like they like to cry. Some people are shower people, like just like to have a good shower cry. Some people are car people. I'm not going to say I endorse like crying heavily when you're driving if you need to like be paying attention to what you're doing. But
Pull
like,
over if
go like sit in the parking lot. But like, give yourself a minute. Give yourself, maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes, and set a timer. Like, play the sad song that makes you cry that we all have. Like, do what you need to do and like set a timer and see what happens. Like, if you come out of it, when you come out of it, what that feels like. And if you can commit to doing that one time and you want to take it to the next step and say at the end of each day, kind of reflect on how the day went, how you're feeling, how you're thinking, doing that sort of inventory. Are there things you would have liked to have done differently, better? Are there things you're proud of that you did? Things that you're grateful for that happened? And you want to try that, I guess doing it once a week would be like the next step up. And then if you want to like go for it and go big and do it more than once a week, like, it's only going to benefit yourself. It's not going to hurt you. I mean, how long does it really take? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? Like, it's not.
Yeah, 5.
To do that. And you can set a timer. Set a timer for 5 minutes and think about reflecting on your day or your week or whatever that looks like. I like that. Rebecca said you come so far, Laura, which
thank you.
And her heart matches your sweater. Not really. Blue, purple, close enough. And Wendy said, I don't cry often, but I really like to cry when listening to music, sometimes in the car.
I hope you pull over. I hope you pull over.
The car, first of all, like music, everyone has that song that makes you cry. Like I have a million songs that make me cry, but like everyone has that song. That's like, oh, if I hear that, like, and if I'm not in a great mood when I hear that song, like if I'm by myself, I'm going to be in tears.
I have, Build a House by Cinematic Orchestra gets me every fucking time.
Sobbing.
Mm-hmm.
Ding.
Oh, do you want to hear something messed up? Speaking of that song, I used
no.
to just listen to that song on repeat in my Bose headphones walking home from work every day. That's how bad it was. I'm like, I will feel sad.
Yeah, that's definitely one for me that really.
Oh, just thinking about that's making me like start to about that song.
And I think music, like that's the point of music, right? It like makes us feel things. We have memories associated with music. Um, I think that's a big one. I think maybe that's why people. I wonder what it is because I know the car is one. Maybe it's like a self-soothing thing that like driving in the car, it's like being
And you're by
pushed.
yourself.
Showers. I know a lot of I'm a good shower crier.
I only shower cried once in my life.
Oh, it's
That was
good.
like after I broke up with my boyfriend, and it was like I was crying before shower. So like
Yeah.
it just carried over.
I was gonna say I like cry anywhere, so I can't really say that I'm like a shower crier, but a good shower cry is like
I
something
like
about the feeling safe. It's like enclosed in water. I don't know.
I'm really dramatic. I don't know why. And I have this weird thing that when I'm like, I want to feel it, I will put on a sad music and lie on the floor.
Uh-huh. That's
I'll never
okay.
forget, like, I used to do that in college too, because, like, I was like, I'm everything's so dramatic. Like, my life is crazy. And I remember one time it was like the cutest, most pure moment. I was doing that. I was lying on the floor, just like listening to sad music, like just like crying. And one of my good friends opened my door because we all had each other's key codes. She just looks at me and it's like dark and she just lies down next to me on the ground. And I was like, this is like a scene straight out of Garden State. Ah, the love. I need to text her. She was a sweetheart.
That's so good. Um, that's so good. And really funny to be like,
My life, like, I don't know why. It's not my life that's dramatic. It's just me. I'm just like, I'm gonna make everything like a Lifetime movie. Let's become
when
an
I was
addict.
when I was younger, I haven't listened to him in years. I don't even know if he like still does comedy, but when I was in high school, Dane Cook was like really big.
Oh yeah, I remember Dean Cook.
And like his first, I don't know if it's like Vicious Circle. It was like one of his first or second
Mhm.
tours. He has a skit about like, do you know what skit I'm talking about? It's really funny. It's like when you really need a good cry and you're like all through the day, you're just like feeling it and you know it and you're like trying to hold it in. And then you're like driving home in your car and you think everyone's looking at you. So you're like, and you're like really theatrical. And he's like, you get home, you open the door and you want to make sure no one's there. So you're like, hello? No one's there. So you like break down on the floor and you're like, and you're crying. And then you're crying so hard that you go look at yourself crying in the mirror because you just need to see what you look like. And then you repeat, like you latch onto a phrase that like really means something to you and it makes you cry harder. And you just keep crying. And his phrase is like, I did my best. So he's like crying. And he's like, of course. Then you're crying and the phone rings and you have to answer it. Why do you answer it? I don't know, but you do. Maybe you want the world to know you're crying. Can't believe I remember this much. He's like, you answer it. It's your fucking dad. Like everyone in the world. And you're like, hey, dad. And he's like, what's wrong? Why are you crying? What's going on? And he's like, it's fine. It's nothing. It's like the funniest skit.
I need to rewatch some Dane Cook.
It's just so I'm like, this isn't even funny. This is just like the most
So
true
true.
don't want to admit to. And that's why it's so funny. Kate said theatrics. Rebecca said you're
The
speaking
theatrics of it all.
teenage soul with the crying to sad songs. It's really um but yeah, I think I like this challenge and I like that it's has a nice amount of dimension to it so people can take it as far as they want to. Maybe they don't, maybe it's too scary to be sad in the moment when you're feeling it. Maybe you want to like do the bottle it up thing and then like later play the song and cry and just like cry for one song. Like you don't have to cry for hours. Like
Also,
then
I have a great tip too. If you're crying sad tears, put something on to make you cry happy tears.
yep.
Okay. I swear by this. When I went through the hardest breakup of my life, and this was like new in sobriety, and this was with the guy who went to Bermuda with another girl when I was in rehab. Like Bye. But anyways, I was so sad and I was crying all the time. And all of a sudden, like, I put on Queer Eye and I hadn't seen anything of it yet. I just like saw a couple people talking about it online. And all of a sudden I'm like weeping, but they're like tears of like, I believe in humanity again. Everyone is good. Life is so beautiful. We're all just trying to survive. And I swear to God that Queer Eye got me through that breakup because it is so beautiful and so pure and they are all just so good and everyone is so good. So make like if you need to feel it and you need a catharsis and you need to cry, cry, but then switch it on up to happy tears because I swear it does wonders for your soul.
That's like a real thing also that there's like a lot of psych research on that typically we gravitate to music that makes us feel how we're feeling because we want it's like empathy, right? We want to know that other people feel how sad we are, how angry we are, whatever. But like it also is a reciprocal thing, so it won't keep us feeling that way. So if you do like an opposite thing that you're like, oh, let me put on something that makes me happy, it doesn't mean you're going to be like dancing for joy, but it does something weird to our brains that like pulls us out of just keeping us in that rabbit hole that like we create for ourselves. And then you're like crying and listening to sad songs, and then you're scrolling through pictures, and then you're like doing the whole thing. Wendy said before I got married, I would cry every time I heard Green Light by Pitbull because I would get excited about dancing on my wedding day. That's so good.
I love that. Wait,
Awesome.
can I change my homework assignment to just make people watch Queer Eye?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Go.
Yeah. And RuPaul, because of
Okay, yes. I just caught up. I know there are only 4 episodes. Brie, you should watch it.
So
And
like,
Simone is amazing. I love Simone.
like,
I have so many favorites.
granted, I watched 1 episode, so like, I don't have much.
It gets good.
Sophia she was showing me Simone's Instagram, and I was like, outfits are amazing. Like the costumes, the artistry were amazing. But I was like, Simone just did everything so different. And that like really does it for me. Like everyone's glam and you're like a boxer. Like, what? Like,
and she had that like confidence where she's like, I was like, she's got like, almost like Paris Hilton vibes to her, but somehow like it was just so good.
So good. The one we were watching, I don't know, it was last week, but I think it was the last, I don't know when it's on, whatever. But the challenge or whatever was like tails or like trains. It was trains. And so Simone had like the do-rag train that I was like
she's iconic.
Brain go to like, oh, I'm just gonna do a do-rag and make it my train. Like, what? It was really cool.
She's gonna go far. I really like her. I'm psyched. That show makes me so happy. Drag makes me so happy. One of my very, very, very good friends, like I told you, my friends took me to a Work the World tour, and this was before I'd ever seen Drag Race, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I love this. And so like now I'm obsessed. But it makes me so happy. Like everything is so joyful. And it's like, it's these human beings that are like doing something that's like, I mean, obviously it's more accepted now, but it's like something so radical in how joyful it is. And it makes me so happy.
Even, I mean, it makes me happy for so many ways. Like, obviously, you know, I've talked to you about Nanny. So like my grandma is 79, I think, and stereotypical Italian grandma. And she's like obviously super depressed since Poppy passed away, like super depressed and like really lonely. And it's like really sad because I'm like, well, then you need to like keep reaching out to friends. Like you need to keep doing that. And she's like, all my friends are dead. And you're like, okay, you're being dramatic. But then like you're with her for a weekend and she's like, oh, this person died. Oh, this person died. And I'm like, oh no, this is terrible. But like she needs something to smile about. And she's also like 80 and like
Can,
progressive in some ways. Holly, I can
can
hear.
you hear him?
Now I can.
So loud. Oh my God, he's sleeping with his eyes open too.
Oh, Rocco does that. It's weird. I hate it. Ew.
He's possessed, I swear to God.
But it's funny because she's like progressive in some ways that she's like, yeah, women should be able to do what they want. But like also just like be a wife and cook for your husband. And like, I'm like, man, or she's like, I don't understand drag. Like, do they want to be girls? Like she doesn't get it. But I was like, nah, just watch it. Like, I think you'll like it. And like, I know this will sound silly to say, but for a 79-year-old woman to one, find joy from the show, but also like be a little bit more open-minded about it, to be like, oh, whatever, like it doesn't matter who they are, who they like, or whatever, how they identify. Like, I was like, oh, that's like kind of cool to be able to have such an impact from like a TV show. And she's like really likes it. Like she's one of those women who like if you leave a glass on the table for like 2 seconds, if you go to the bathroom, your glass is gone. She like cleaned it up. So she's like, as you're finishing dinner, she's like cleaning the table. There's no dishes anywhere left behind. Last week, we are like eating, and Sophia's like, oh, Drag Race is starting. And Annie's like, okay, leave the dishes, leave the dishes. Like all ran inside. It was so sweet.
So cute.
I know, right? And she was like saying to Sophia, she's like, is there another one on? When is that show on? Like, when can we watch it?
It's so good. That makes me so happy.
I know. It's sweet. Okay, cool though. I like this homework. I'm gonna draft some combination. We'll talk about it tomorrow and I'll post about it tomorrow, Friday. I guess tomorrow. Some combination of this span of options for folks where it feels like the general vibe is to feel the feels. Whatever feels that is, whatever you're in a place to feel. If you need to sit and maybe grow and stretch a little bit and feel some of the uncomfortable feels, cool. Like here's some ways to do that and figure it out. If you're in a place where like maybe you just need to feel joy for a minute, like cool. Find a way to do that and set yourself up for success to feel that. And then as you're spending a week feeling your feels, taking some sort of inventory, whether it's at the end of every day, whether it's the end of the week, and just checking in on how it went, what it was like, probably new and different, and how you could have done it differently. Are there parts of this that you want to keep doing? Are there parts of it that you want to change? Something to that effect, I guess. Sounds like it captures most of it.
Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty. I cannot say thank you enough. It was great talking to you. I know this conversation is gonna be really important for people to hear, not just people who are like struggling with substance use, but I think people who have a hard time feeling things or letting themselves feel the things that we don't love to feel. And I think hearing about your journey and your continued like work like day in and day out is going to be really inspiring to people. And so I'm super grateful to have you on here. I'm super grateful to have met you and know you and have become friends with you. And I hope it's not the last time that we chat on here because this was fun.
Yeah, I had fun. I was scared I was going to be awkward. But I'm like, oh, this is just like talking with Brie like normal.
Yeah, that's pretty much
Thank
it.
you so much for having me on. Like, seriously, I appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
it's helpful for me to like talk this shit through too.
Cool.
So
That's good. I hope so. I hope it's not like an hour of people's lives that's like, oh, that wasn't helpful to me at all, but whatever.
no. No, and hopefully someone else gets something out of it. If they don't, at least I did. And
Mhm.
I mean, yeah. And I love chatting with you, obviously. And I'm really happy that we're friends.
Okay. Cool. If you're watching, thank you. Thank you so much. If you came live, thank you for Mia. If you're here, I need to give Mia her weekly shout out. If you're here, I'm gonna just trust that you're here. Actually, it's late. Mia, you should probably be in bed. You probably have school tomorrow. I'm like the cool aunt. You could say
Oh yeah, that's you. Hip, cool, happening aunt.
And if you're not watching live and you're watching at a later time, thank you for checking us out. Definitely keep an eye on my Instagram. I'll share Laura's challenge tomorrow and make sure to post and use the hashtag and win some shit. And the grand prize is going to be big. I don't know what it's going to be yet. Probably like some sort of yarn for my shop.
Her yarn is so
even
good.
And even if you don't win, like keep posting, because if you posted in November and you didn't win, those posts are still counting toward the next entry. Like I'm just adding new posts on, but pulling from the same number. So don't stop posting. Tag me, tag Laura, because I'll speak for her because we're friends and I know she wants to see and hear. Let us know what your experience was feeling your shit this week. And how it's going, what you're planning on taking with you in the rest of your days moving forward. Any last words, Laura?
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. She's so sweet. Just thanks anyone who tuned in. Appreciate it. And good luck feeling those feels if they're unpleasant, and have fun if you feel the positive emotions. Enjoy them.
Cool. Sounds good. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, people, and until next time. Bye.
Bye.